You know how that got that lion. Are we live? Yeah. I knew we were live
It
because
was
you were
too
live.
good. It was too good. I couldn't help myself.
Dun, 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 dun. We're gonna get popped for using the music without paying for it.
Copyright, even though it's our own
Yeah, you think
original.
the algorithm will pick that up with my perfect pitch and perfect
Yeah,
tone? Dun,
perfect.
dun, 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 dun,
Perfect.
dun, 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 dun.
What's up,
And
profitable
now
stylist?
for our featured presentation.
Here we go this week. Quick announcement. Thank you. Over 4,000 subscribers. Really
Thank you.
appreciate you guys.
That's because you beg for subscribers. We
Yeah, oh
finally
yeah,
got
I,
there.
I, I beg all the time, every week. No, I really, really appreciate everybody watching, appreciate subscribing, appreciate all the comments. You guys rock. This is what it takes to be profitable. You just got to show up, keep working hard, and say something that actually makes sense half the time. Not all the time, just half the time.
True. You don't have to make sense all the time or do
Now,
good work all of the time.
no, but you got to be consistent. You got to either consistently suck and eventually you'll get good, or you got to get good and then you can get gooder, because that's a word.
Good. Yes. That's not a bad topic, actually, consistency, because I think you're right.
What is happening?
Wow, I hear a delay over
What
on
is
that
happening?
end.
Here we go. Okay.
I hear myself like a second delay. Consistency is, you're right. I think you're right. If you had to pick like being good or being consistent, consistency comes first.
I go consistent before I say good. Yeah, you can always get better.
And we're talking about blow dryers today
And it
or
goes
blow.
right in.
We're talking about blowing in general, drying, air, hair getting dry. Not just blow dryers,
Not
but
just
there
blow
you go.
dryers and tools too, a combination of multiple things. And tools doesn't just have to be a brush. It could be a flat iron, it could be a curling iron, it could be a number of different things. But it's a really important topic because I was just teaching a class last night or yesterday morning and night. And the thing is this, you could do the best perfect haircut, hair color, hair extension, whatever service you do, right? But if you're
Mhm.
not good at finishing and styling it, then it doesn't matter how good it was. It just looks crap. And then on the opposite side, you may not be the best at doing hair, but if you can style it really good, or if your client can style their own hair really well, then it looks amazing. It looks fantastic. Or my new word, wait, fantastical. I'm just making up new words. I give up on trying to learn the language anymore.
I've got I've got all those stylists in my salon. I won't name them, but I've got the ones that do amazing cuts, but they just don't style so well at the end. So then it doesn't matter because the client feels like they got a bad job. And then the opposite, like you just said, is much more important. I've got one or two in there that don't do that good of a job with hair cutting. We do a cutting class at least once a month, but I do a class every Tuesday morning. And it's amazing to me that some of my better stylists are a little weak in the hair cutting. But I always said hair cutting doesn't have to be perfect. It's that style, that finishing, like you said. They'll do amazing color or highlights and then amazing styling. And as long as the haircut is 70-80% close, the styling just really kind of hides everything. And some haircuts are not that difficult. One length, some basic layers, but when you get a little more intricate, I mean, you got these newer things like what's the difference in a mullet and a wolf cut, and then is it a combination between the two? Some sort of stacking or shingling or graduated or layered or a shag. What's the difference in all of those, and where are the lines from long layers, medium layers, short layers? I mean, all of that's kind of fun to me, but when you start talking those details or showing pictures, some of my best hairdressers, they get nervous on the inside even if they don't show it. I don't know what she means when she says shag.
You're right, right, right.
But the styling, like you said, so that's why we're going to talk about blow dryers today. Eddie brought some things up that I wasn't so aware of with blow dryers that I thought was fascinating that kind of sparked this conversation. And it kind of started with two things. One was the AC/DC. Like, oh, that's funny. That's a band, right?
That's a really good band.
So that stems from alternating current and direct current, how electricity flows through wires and motors. And there's been a big change, and I'll let Eddie talk more about that in a minute, but there's been a big change in the blow dryer motor world where the changing from one current to the other in some motors made some things possible. But then the other one was the heating element itself. And I never even thought about how the air gets hot inside there could come from different choices. So you want to cover those two things?
Yeah. So in your blow dryer, in the most basic explanation, a blow dryer simply works like this. It sucks air in through the back. There's a vent in the back. It sucks
Or
air
the
in.
handle if it's a Dyson.
Well, that's newer technology, but at the end of the day, either way, airflow is coming in
Right.
from one part of the blow dryer. It's heating up inside the shell, wherever that shell is, the housing of the blow dryer, and then it's being pushed out. Well, then it's being pushed out through the back end. And if you can kind of look inside there, you could kind of see some coils and some elements in there too. So
Yeah.
what happens is as the air gets pulled in, these coils get red hot in there. They heat up really, really good. And that's what heats up, because it's pulling in cold air. The air around us is cold, heats up inside and pushes that out. Now, whether it blows out like this or whether you put an attachment on there that we refer to as a concentrator, some people call it a nozzle, whatever you want to call it, that just directs how that airflow is coming out. But in its raw form, that is the purpose of, and that is how a blow dryer simply works. Now, with the technology of how that heat gets controlled is really awesome. It's really fascinating. This is where I love science. A direct motor, a direct motor is, generally speaking, a heavier weight motor. So the old-fashioned blow dryers, or however you want to refer to it as, blow dryers, the classic blow dryers 20 years ago, 30 years ago, they were all very heavy.
So those are all DC motors?
And those were all DC motors. So
And most of our houses have AC power coming in. So is there also some kind of converter in there to change the AC power to DC? Is that part of what the extra weight's all about?
Oh, you're talking about the outlets. You're talking about the flow, the current flow of electricity through the outlets.
Right.
Right.
That's going to be AC current coming from the house.
But then you're plugging your blow dryer into that outlet.
And that's where the change is, right there.
Well, that current is running all the way through your cord, and it's getting into the apparatus.
But I'm
of the
saying
blow
the
dryer,
change
right?
from AC to DC happens where? In that block on the wall or inside the motor? Inside there.
Inside there. No, inside there, because the power that you're talking about is turning on the motor. The motor itself is what's heating up the heating element inside the blow dryer. So the AC current of electricity is powering the DC motor just for it to turn on and rotate,
Okay.
to get the RPMs going. And then that's what's heating up the core element. And that core element traditionally was some kind of a coil, like if you think of a furnace coil.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays they have more like ceramic elements, and it's not, it doesn't just have to be, a thin piece of metal wire anymore that's getting heated up.
Does it also turn
generate
red?
the heat? The ceramic elements?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer exactly. I appreciate the science, but I'm not going to claim that I know that I'm
That's
an
fine.
expert on the blow dryers inside and out.
So when they,
But I
so
imagine
these
Say
newer,
again?
smaller blow dryers, are you saying that they're AC motors
so
now?
even the
and they're
motor
lighter?
is AC, which is making them more lightweight. So you'll hear things like featherweight or lightweight, and it's being able to, because now, I mean, look, this is an Ergo brand blow dryer, for example, right? And this blow dryer by itself is pretty compact comparing to what blow dryers used to be. The nozzle part of a blow dryer used to extend this far out, and I'm not exaggerating.
Right.
It literally used to extend this far out. It was literally the length of a barrel. So
Right.
even though this is a, by today's standards, has some weight to it, it's
Right.
not as heavy as some of the original blow dryers used to be. Like, and then in comparison to nowadays, they're getting even lighter and lighter, and they're getting, some of them are getting even more smaller and compact, comparing to this ergo blow dryer that I'm using as an example, right? So it's pretty fascinating, because with the AC technology now, they're able to generate infrared heat rather than direct airflow. So that heating element is creating a different kind of heat in how it's evaporating the moisture off the surface of the hair. So when you have direct airflow, you're pushing the moisture off the surface of the hair. So you got to dry the hair from the outside, and then eventually you're drying it to the inside of the hair. Whereas if you have that infrared heat, that technology goes deeper into the hair. And I'm going to loosely give an analogy of a microwave. So when you cook your food on a stovetop, it's got to heat up the pan, the water's got to boil, then the food cooks eventually, right?
Right.
That would be the equivalent of like a direct airflow from the outside in. Whereas
Yep.
in a microwave, you throw your food in the fridge in a Tupperware, then you put it in the microwave, it starts heating up your food from the inside out.
Yep.
And that's kind of like what infrared heat loosely does. It warms up
Interesting.
the hair shaft from the inside, and then eventually, that heat generates to the outside and evaporates all the moisture, which is why, generally speaking, and I'm going very general, generally speaking, when you're blow drying hair and you're using an infrared heat, you know, when you're on the round brush, you'll all of a sudden you'll be blow drying hair, blow drying hair, blow drying hair, and then all of a sudden you start seeing a puff of smoke or a puff of evaporation.
Or a flame.
You're right. Flame would be that would be amazing, actually, if an
Usually you
infrared could create
smell.
that.
Usually you smell if it's going wrong.
Really, hopefully, if you can smell. I can't smell anymore, so
Ah,
I'm SOL on that one. But it's but what you're seeing is, all of a sudden, the inside core of the, like, inside of the hair shaft got dry, and now all of a sudden the surface got dry, and you're on the pre stage of overheating the hair, and it's poofing. You're visually seeing extended evaporation of moisture. So then obviously
gotcha.
you should take that off.
So that's the end of it. You should see a genie at this point and make a wish,
You,
right?
you, you should get
You got
3 wishes, otherwise you get
three.
ripped off, right?
So,
But
so
I'm not
that's
saying
that,
that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying, generally speaking, it's a personal preference of how you got to
and you
approach
have
it.
to, and you have to know and decide if this white looking smoky steam is. You have to decide, is it just a steam being evaporated at the last second? I'm not going stupid on this, or is it smoke from burning? That's
True.
what you have. That's what you have
Yeah.
to decide right at the end. And most people can kind of smell just before you've gone too far. You can smell a little bit of the bad smoke smell, and that
If
means you're
it's
too.
clear and it's coming off really fast, that's moisture. No different than water boiling on a pot on the stovetop.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
But
If
you're right.
it's
That's right at the end of get off of it soon.
get off of it soon. If it's looking kind of milky, or, well, nobody smokes anymore, but if it was looking like smoky, but I'll say like milky,
Yeah, too
then
late.
yeah, that's too late. You better.
So we talked about elements. You know what that brings to mind for me is when I was trying to figure out like how to just be more efficient. A few things come up. I want to bring a few points up. One is the amount of air that comes through. The bigger dryers obviously could have bigger fans and more just volume of air coming out along with this potential heat, which to me, I was always about getting done quicker. So I'm looking for the hottest blow dryer, the most air. I'm looking for something that blows like a leaf blower of today, those battery operated. And I didn't care about noise because I was one of a few in the salon. And then I get to be a salon owner and I've got multiple hairdressers and you got sales techs coming in. That'll be my next point. saying, well, if you use this blow dryer, you can have 8 of them going at the same time and still have conversations with your clients. And I thought, now that's an interesting concept, because that is the biggest conversation killer in a salon. It was happening yesterday.
Yeah,
One of my
that's
hairdressers was blow drying Vincey's hair, and she kept going, "What did you say? What did you say?" She could, and I was purposely like not talking loud enough, just making fun of the sound of a blow dryer and messing up some words on purpose so she would feel like it was even more her. But it reminded me of how loud blow dryers can be.
yeah, that's called break time.
Yeah.
Hairdressers will understand and appreciate what I'm saying right now.
Right. Stop talking to me for just a few minutes. But there are dryers, and I think this is kind of where my old school mentality of I want a lot of blow and a lot of heat. And then when the technology is changing, I'm not realizing they got these little skinny blow dryers now. They just look like toys, like kids' toys. And people are loving them and blow drying hair. And I'm thinking, that's some pretty well-respected hairdressers using them. They must be okay. I'm not behind the chair anymore, so I haven't bought one. I don't need to use it. I know people are getting them all rhinestoned out and looking pretty and cool, but the fact is it's tiny. Even the Dyson blow dryer it looks so small. I think, how can it be putting out enough air? But I guess if you can get the proper amount of heat through whatever heating element or whatever is producing heat, you might not need as much flow.
And that's where the personal preference is going to come in. And that's where the balance is going to come in as well, too. Everything in life is a trade-off. So if you're getting airflow, if you're getting strong airflow, and I'm talking about like the equivalent of driving down the highway at 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour, you know?
With your head out the window?
Oh, and then the wind
on a
blowing.
motorcycle.
Oh, beautiful. Or top down on a convertible, you know? Motorcycle is even more fun. You know, but yeah, like you're getting that level of airflow, you know, the equivalency of that level of airflow, you're pushing all that moisture off that surface. Then you don't necessarily need to get so hot. You don't need to be pushing 350 degrees. You know, you could get downrange of 250, something like that. As long as you're above the boiling point of water, which is 212, then you're starting to evaporate moisture. And then it's just a matter of your patience and your skill set on how you're manipulating that airflow across that section of the hair in order to evaporate that moisture properly to get it dry enough, or to the state of dry enough. Okay. Now, when you're reducing airflow, now you're increasing heat. And how
Or should be.
What's that?
Or should be.
Or should be, right? Then so now your trade-off is, rather than pushing the moisture off the surface of the hair, that section of hair, you're just evaporating the moisture off that section of the hair.
And you can now possibly leave that blow dryer more still on that section without burning the hair. More your technique compared to mine. I'm always moving a blow dryer. I mean, my mom was her blow dryer was always like, her hand was always moving. That dryer was, it never stopped moving because she was worried she was going to burn. And that's what I learned from. Keep that dryer moving. We're not burning anybody. It doesn't matter if it's 500 degrees. We're not going to burn them because we're moving it so much, you know. But as the airflow or temperature came down and the brushes changed, you want to speak to that a little bit, like the difference in the brush that had no holes in it, the old wooden brushes, then the holes, the metal compared to ceramic. I mean, that all made a difference too, right?
Yeah. So, and we're gonna get some comments on this one, and some people are gonna agree, and some people are gonna disagree, and that's okay. I'd be interested to get everybody's perspective on it, because I don't like moving the blow dryer too much. I am a believer that if you're using airflow, and if you're using airflow properly, you should be able not have the blow dryer directly onto the brush. But as long as the blow dryer is directed away, somewhat away from the brush and not dead on, you could be able to hold the blow dryer still because you're controlling how that airflow is going across the surface of the round brush. You're using the technology of the round brush, which I'll talk about in a second. Whereas nowadays, if you're getting direct heat rather than direct airflow, I would be kind of nervous to hold the blow dryer directly still, because I would think I'm creating a hot spot on the surface of that section, and I would think it might burn the hair. So I would be more apt to constantly move the blow dryer around just to kind of flush that heat, so it's not just focused, centrally on one section. And the brushes have made a huge difference over the years, because I'm just going to use the back of my paddle brush for a second. But back in the day, it was literally just a flat surface. There was no way of air going through, And so when we would be blow drying, just the airflow would come out of the blow dryer, it would hit the brush, and then it would bounce right back. There was nowhere for that airflow to dissipate. And it would just go forward, it just go backwards. But if you're coming off the hair, the airflow would be coming back into the client's head, and then the airflow would be pushing down the hair shaft where we wanted it to. And that's why we started really moving the blow dryer around, because
right, and you just kept
kept pulling for tension, because if you kept it on too long, some of that airflow would be blowing back up into the client's head. That would be painful. That wouldn't be so comfortable. And so we just got into the habit.
And you weren't drying the other side of the brush.
And you weren't drying the other side of the brush. You were only drying the front side of the brush.
It was round.
In the round brush, because the round brushes, I don't know if you could see it in here,
yeah.
They didn't have these vents. They didn't have the holes in the vents. They were just a smooth surface all the way through the brush, right?
Right.
So we were doing a lot of that manual labor to create the airflow, to direct the airflow in that manner. But nowadays, with more modern round brushes, it's got the vents in there, and the barrel itself is more ceramic. The bristles are well, this is an Ergo round brush. I want Robert, sponsor us. We're not sponsored by Ergo. I just love Ergo round brushes and the tools. But yeah, so they, like in an Ergo round brush, for example, the nylon, the bristles are nylon, so they resist heat more. They're tourmaline coated, so they'll create more smoothness and shine. The barrel is ceramic, so it conducts the heat evenly throughout the entire brush. And so I'm not having to, I'm a hot mess, man. I get too excited.
Water, did you spill water on the keyboard?
All over my computer.
Let's talk about that. You got to dry that up. Let's talk about that ceramic.
You talk about that for a second.
Well, I think it's important that good thing you got paper towels there. I think it's important that people notice this, because it's not very obvious. That round brush just looks like the round brushes that were started 20 years ago. You can't really tell from a look at it that it's much different than any other round brush with the holes in it. Right. I mean, when you just look at it, it doesn't have LED lights. It's not flashing red and green. It doesn't, like hot tools and electrical tools, they can add so much flair with LED lights and LED screens. And you obviously see that these tools are newer and different because of the size and the lights and the bling. But brushes, it's harder to know that it's any different than the old brush we used forever ago. But the original brushes that they started bragging about with the holes in the middle, it was a great idea to start with, but Robert and Ergo's gone just so much further, and I appreciate that too. And I know other companies do some similar stuff, but you really know Ergo, and I think you should talk a little bit more about it, because the very first thing I see there that I don't think most people see, and only because I know you and this Ergo brush, is that part that the bristles are sticking right out of on some older brushes was just cheap metal, aluminum, steel, whatever it was. Right. And so that would get hot, have hot spots. And although the holes were there, so the air supposedly flowed through and got all the way around, you still had to roll that brush to get the heat all the way around more evenly. That one, because of the material of that, is it ceramic?
It's a ceramic barrel, yeah.
Yeah, that I know. I just know ceramics and heat, and ceramics just spread the heat more evenly. You can put heat on one spot and it pushes around to the other side quick and easy. Then with the holes in there so it can get to the other side, you're just getting more. That's why you can hold your blow dryer more still. I could never hold my blow dryer still way back then. So I get the difference in being ceramic to start with. But then the tourmaline, I think, is interesting. I can't say I totally am on board with this, but I think it's
do you know what tourmaline is?
Yeah, I don't totally understand it, but I've heard you explain it a few times, and even my son Brennan's like, I don't know if I believe. He's got my cynicism.
The two of you, I swear, sometimes
we don't just believe people because they say it, you know. So understanding what tourmaline is and how it being on a bristle can actually do something, I think is super fascinating, and I'm like almost there believing it. So give it one more shot for the world out there.
Tourmaline is a stone. It's an ore. It's a type of element, okay? And it is nature's deodorizer. The property of tourmaline is to seal and reduce odors and smells. And when it's ground up real fine into dust, it could be mixed in and combined with other things, and it'll help produce that property. Now, when tourmaline first started hitting the beauty industry, we're going to take a history lesson now. We got to go back 25 years, okay? Maybe even 30 years at this point. Everybody used to smoke cigarettes. Yeah. I literally used to, when I had my salon, I used to stay up at night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I would have overnight services, meaning I would close the salon at 8, 9 o'clock p.m. I would reopen around 1 a.m. and I would stay open till about 3, 4 a.m. And back then, people would go to the club, they would go to the bar, they would smoke. The smoky smell would be, you know, in their hair. So when they would be coming back from the bar or from the club, they would stop by the salon real quick. I would do a blow dry. And this was before brushes were really retailable back then, you know? So I would blow dry their hair, and that would clean the smoke smell from their hair. Now,
just because of the blow drying.
Just because of the tourmaline that's infused into the bristles of the brush. Way back then? Yes. So now you fast forward to nowadays, you know, not everybody smokes so much no more, but everybody is working out a lot more often. So everybody is sweating a lot more often. And people used to not wash their hair so much. Can't just take a bath. Well, that's what I was just getting at. People used to wash their hair very often. Now, the past 10 years, it's kind of shifted. Not everybody's washing their hair so often. People are washing their hair every other day or every second day, every third day. And they're trying to just keep their hair for a couple of days without having to get it wet so often. So then a paddle brush, for example, that's tourmaline infused or the bristles are tourmaline coated could be passed through the hair, and that'll help remove some of that BO, some of that odor from being sweating, you know, and just the natural oils that secrete from the scalp. The other property of tourmaline, which is really nice, is when it's hit with heat, it generates negative ions. And in the atmosphere around us, there is a positive electrical charge. And so, like, you ever walk across a carpet and you got socks on and then you go to hit the light switch and you zap yourself? So that's positive electricity. So, you know, two of the same charges repel each other. That's where you get that little static pop. But when you have the negative ions being generated by this kind of technology with that tourmaline coating on it, now you have that positive ionic charge on your hair. Now you're passing through a negative ion over it. The two charges, they're not going to repel each other. They're going to combine and meld together really nice. And that's going to help smooth and seal down the outer layer of the hair, the cuticle layer of the hair. And that is now going to start giving you more reflective shine, more smoothness, a silkier feel to the hair. Also, it's going to help repel humidity and moisture. So then this way your hair is not going to blow up and grow big as the day passes through. So that is an additional benefit and property that you have to using tourmaline in your products.
I could get behind the electricity thing, and because I know certain brushes or combs, when flat ironing the hair, just gross.
Hmm.
And you got it kind of sticking out, like if you take a balloon at a birthday party, or rub it against your head, and or
This is exactly, yeah.
a little girl's hair has longer hair, even some boys' hair, and the finer hair does it better. You rub it against her, and then you hold the balloon up, and the hair just follows and sticks up, or you can hold it up here. So I get that the charges that's fascinating. That could help a lot. I want to put it to the test, of
You
course.
got to make me a T-shirt that says science.
Hair science. You're gonna wear it here.
Hair
So
science.
that's interesting. So that assisting in the blow drying. But let's go let's kind of do a little bit like we did last week as far as going into the past, the present, and the future of blowing.
Okay.
Because air has been used for a long time. But you know what? Even before air on hair, nothing was used, right? Just overnight was used originally. Like girls that wanted to curl their hair would put their hair in, they had to think ahead of time, put their hair on rollers, orange juice cans, anything round, put it around it, maybe put a some sort of a gel or styling lotion, a thin gel basically, that would dry hard in the shape that they put their hair in, and just sleep with it. And by morning,
Mhm.
they'd hope to be dry. Or they would, the next step was, and then take them out, or rollers or sponges or something to get some curl in their hair. But then, what was the very next step to drying hair? I mean, it had to be some sort of a hood dryer before a blow dryer, huh?
Yeah, it was a lot of hood dryers, and they were called rigid stationary dryers back in the day. Like the
Mm.
historical reference to them is weird, how they
So
said that,
people
but
didn't have them at home then. It was more of a salon thing.
they were built into the wall. They were literally built into the wall. The only thing that moved on it was the hood part of it. So you would sit down, they'd close the hood down over your head, it would blow some air, they'd lift the hood back up, and that was it. And we still use it today, but how that's become modernized is over the years, you still have your tradition, what we refer to now as the traditional hood dryers, but
Hmm.
now there's the lamps, there's
Ah, yep. Lighted heat. Yep.
the lighted heat, those use the infrared heat lamps. And now even more recently is steamers or vaporizing units, where it's a hooded dryer like you're used to seeing traditionally, except it's got vents in it that you use distilled water, and it boils that water, and it releases hot steam.
How's that going to dry your hair? That's wet heat.
Science. No,
Well,
that one is more traditionally used for like processing hair color and things like that.
yeah, I guess if you had a plastic cap on over the rollers, then that steam heat is still heat, but it's not dry heat. It's gonna be wet heat, and it'll maybe dry underneath the plastic. I don't know if the plastic
No,
doesn't grab the steam and
but that's
drip.
the evolution of the
Yeah,
hooded dryer, for example. Now, what
right.
that was birthed
Do
is
people use that red light, the lights to dry hair? Because I know we've never used the lights, but I've seen them in salons, and I know a lot of people use them for different conditioning treatments, processing colors and bleaches when
right.
you could heat them up. But I didn't ever really think about people using them to dry hair. But I guess
It's
it could
not
be
the
done.
fastest thing in the world because it's
Right,
low intensity, and that's the whole
right.
point. We
That's
want to
interesting.
control that so we can just use it with a treatment and help push that product, deeper into the hair.
Yeah,
But creatively speaking, and if you got the time to sit there, who's to say that you couldn't do it that way? Why
right.
not?
That's interesting. So then, so then, drying hair, it doesn't have to be done with heat either. And that's how we know that girls went overnight and let their hair dry. Because I know if I bathe my dog, I don't even have to bathe my dog. He just jumps in the pool. Then we're like, no, don't get in the pool. Leave him outside till he dries. It will just dry. He'll just dry naturally. Or we at the groomer, they'll use air. If you go to, this is interesting. So Tractor Supply, I don't know if it's like this nationwide, but Tractor Supply will have a dog grooming area in the back that you can like pay $10 and go back there, wash your dog, dry your dog yourself. They just have all the tools, and you don't have to make the mess at your own house. And the dryer is just a little unit on the wall. I guess this little motor. It almost looks like a little wet dry vac, and it's got a wet dry vac hose. It's no heat. You turn it on, it just blows cold air, but it's like whoop, it's loud and it's forceful. So just a cold air dries them pretty quick. But
because you're
that's
using
going to be
airflow.
right, airflow and force.
Hmm.
So I think it's fascinating that we've kind of come full circle from you can just use time. You've got all these factors that you have to balance. Just time, uh, cold or hot, a volume of air, and then what creates the heat. So what creates the heat and how much volume of air and where you put it and how long you wait. There's so many factors that you have to consider. So if you want to use like Ali earlier. We were on Facebook and he was saying he didn't like a particular small blow dryer just because of the noise. It
Just
irritates
because of
him.
the
And
noise irritated
yeah, he
him.
was like, he doesn't like that. Whatever the noise was, he tried to mimic it, and I thought it was funny. It was a little high pitched and irritating, and I could see why you wouldn't like it. So I guess you kind of, and then I think you and Nikessa said y'all like a big heavy. Is that right? Was it you two?
Yeah. I no,
Like a heavy
she
dryer.
does not prefer the heavy dryer. She prefers the lightweight dryer.
Oh, I thought she liked the
I
heavy one. Okay.
Yeah, no, she was teasing, but which is fun. No, I personally prefer a little more weight to my
Weight on
blow
your
dryer.
drive.
Yeah, because generally speaking, when you have a blow dryer that has a little more weight to it, you're pretty much going to be getting more forceful airflow rather
Mm.
than
Bigger
heat.
fan,
I
bigger
I
fan motor,
bigger fan motor, stronger, yeah,
more
stronger
heating
pull,
element.
you know. And so to me, I just because from a professional level, when I'm blow drying, I want to see, I want to visually see from the surface down to the inner core of the hair shaft, how is that heat drying? And I want to be able to control and manipulate that. Now, there's a lot of professionals out there, professional hairdressers that are the reverse. They prefer the lightweight blow dryers. They prefer, instead of airflow, they prefer heat, the concentration of heat, with the infrareds and
Yeah,
stuff. And
right.
they prefer those lightweight blow dryers. And that's okay too. And it's all personal preference, whether because you have a shoulder problem, you've had surgery, you've had
True.
whatever.
And that's why I never liked the concentrator because I was more about air flow.
You're
Lots of
talking about
flow.
the concentrator, the
Yeah,
attachment that goes
without
onto
that.
the nozzle.
Didn't, yeah,
I
I've
mean, onto
used
the
it.
blow dryer.
Yeah, I've used them. Didn't really need them. Didn't want them. To me, that just restricted my airflow. I wanted a lot of flow and a lot of heat, and putting that on there to me seemed like it was just. I mean, yes, it did definitely give me more pressure in a smaller area, but I've already picked a blow dryer that has a lot of volume, and so I didn't want to restrict the air. I get the air going in the way I want.
No,
I think
but
it.
it's coming in big
Yep.
and it's coming out really, really concentrated. No, no,
Yeah.
no, no. All that airflow is now
Right.
hyper focused. So you're
Right.
really, really kind of like what you were just describing when you're blow drying Casper. You're getting that blast
All
of
over the
air.
place.
So
Yeah.
now a concentrator, literally like its name is, it is concentrating that airflow into a very specific direction. So you're really getting that full blast. The other thing about it is too, again, it's going to come down to your ability of how well you are at blow drying. Because when,
Right.
when you're sitting there and you're round brushing, especially if you're focusing all that air in that one section like that, then you're going to be able to control the section of that hair so it's not blowing all over the place, so you're not getting flyaways and frizzies. You're getting that nice smooth shape, plus you're really focusing on which part of the round brush you're heating up, so you can control the heat a lot better. But like what you're saying is you feel like you have the ability, without concentrating all that airflow, to be able to get it across the surface of the round brush, and you're able to control the surface of that section of hair that you're blow drying.
But I'm moving more. I am letting that whole section open up with the brush, blowing a big section from the scalp to the ends, then rolling it up and heating and coming out and rolling it up, heating it up, and then letting it cool. I want a lot of surface area because, again, there's trade-offs, like you said. You're concentrating, and so I think most people, I kind of like what Ali said earlier. If you can't move fast or enough, you should use medium or lower flow and heat because you
Yeah.
might burn the hair. And so for me, it's a similar situation. I not a can or can't do thing, but for me, concentrating means I'm going to be I'm going to be working on a smaller little area. It should go faster, and then I can move to the next area. But I want to work on a larger area at one time and not concentrate on one small area. And so, yeah, maybe it's going to take a little more time because I'm doing more area, whereas you're doing faster in a small area and moving to the next area because it goes faster. That's the trade-off there. But let's talk about feel like we're in the future of air for hair right now, but there's so many things coming that I think one of the first, like, I don't know, not such a fancy invention, but I know my mom used to have this thing that sat on a table. She put the blow dryer in this little tube and just sat it on a table, and it went through a tube and to a hooded thing that went on her head. So there's a lot of inventions where they tried to bring the professional or hood dryer into the house in a less expensive way by turning the blow dryer into a hood dryer so that she could dry all of her hair at one time. So there are much less expensive hood dryers these days. It's just on a pole, and the whole motor and the hood are all in one, and it just sits on a little tripoded thing. We use those in the hair replacement area because they're much cheaper and take up a lot less space, and we can just roll them around in and out of rooms. But what I think is fascinating about what they're doing with air and heat now is combining them with other tools.
So just imagine, like what's really trending right now and what's popular right now is you'll have a round brush, like your traditional round brush, but instead of having a handle, the handle is now
the motor.
The motor. It's the blow dryer, right?
Right.
And so it's pulling all that heat inside into the vents, and it's pushing the air out of the vents rather than us forcing the air into the vents. These newer blow dry combo brush style things are kind of interesting because it is a lot of coordination to use two hands, and then especially on yourself to get behind your head or to get on the side of your head and be able to pull that down and then switch hands and come to the other side and be able to do that. So having one tool and everything is in one tool, it makes it a little bit easier because now the person can take their free hand, wrap their hair around it, and then they can use both hands to pull it out, and they're able to blow dry, sections of their hair. What you have to be mindful of is not to overheat and not to wrap like, do I have a smaller?
And not to do it on soaking wet hair. I think that's probably the first mistake.
That's the other thing too. Some of these, like if you could see the size of these two, right? Like some of these combo styles are this small of a barrel.
Right.
But they're putting this big of a section of hair, wrapping it around that. That is way too much hair trying to wrap around that teeny tiny barrel. So now sometimes that hair is getting stuck in there, and you see people, yanking away, pulling away.
So the first advice, if you're using one of those at home, would be to put your towel dry your hair so it's not dripping wet. Put your products in your hair that you want. A heat resistant product would be a nice thing to do to help protect your hair a little bit.
Would be nice.
And any of the other styling products you might want to use. And then maybe whatever words you want to use, a regular blow dryer just to remove even more moisture before you put that tool in your hair, right?
You could use a regular blow dryer, but then it kind of defeats the purpose of having one of these type of special tools. So
I don't mean with a round brush or paddle brush or anything. I just mean just to
you can hand toss your hair, power dry your hair with a regular blow dryer.
A little bit of just get some of the moisture out, make that tool work better and faster.
Or wrap your hair up in a towel. Like some women, they'll wrap their hair up in a towel and they'll just walk around waiting for it to kind of air dry that way. And they start doing their makeup or getting dressed or whatever.
That's right. So the towel still pulling some of the moisture out of the hair.
Still pulling some of that moisture out the hair. So either way, pre-dry your hair. That's the most important thing, like Bernard is saying, like you're saying. Pre-dry your hair. And then this is the one thing that I see a lot of people miss. They don't subsection their hair. They just take the entire side of their head and they're just trying to force the entire thing in there, And
you can do the side a little easier than you can do the back because ears take up a lot of space where there would have been hair compared to the back. So a lot of ladies will take this big section here or this one here and this one here and get away with it. It's when they get to the back and they take from here all the way to here in one. Yeah.
They're
So
trying to take the whole thing. Half of
yeah.
it's falling off the sides and the other sides, and you're only ever blow drying. Here's another thing to keep in mind. If I take the entire side of my head over here, right? This whole entire top section is not getting dried. It's only the bottom part that's touching the brush is the only part that's getting dried. If you're using one of these combo tools, if you're using a blow dryer, then it's the opposite. The entire underside is not getting dry. It's only the surface that the blow dryer is touching is getting dried.
So are you saying that they should is there a right answer here? If you
Subsection.
Yep, but listen, if you subsection here and leave a little section out in the bottom back and then start blowing it or whatever you're doing with your tool, and then you drop the next section down, that wet section is going to touch the dry.
Well, no, because it's been pre-dried. It's not wet no more. It's towel dried. So you
Not
don't have
soaking
the
wet.
dripping. Yeah, you don't have.
And that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
for not having it dripping wet.
Yeah.
So your last section doesn't touch the neck. Because if you start styling on the top of the head, you can't let it lay down because you can't get underneath it without clipping it out the way. And if you clip it out the way, you mess up the style. So you kind of do. I know some people, I've seen people start at the top and work down. They're using,
Yeah, I've seen it.
they're using clips that don't have teeth in it or make grooves. They have to be very careful. They're using flat, smooth clips. So when they clip the hair, they're not putting marks in the hair. They have to clip it in such a way that encourages the style. They have to kind of roll it into what they did and clip it almost like it's in a roller. So there's a way to do it. But again, I think we're then getting into the difficulty and professionalism of being able to go from the top down. It's going to be a lot easier to start at the bottom and work up. I think we're done.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Any futuristic blow dryers that you found on the internet that we should know about before we go?
What I'm starting to see is a lot of
Has Elon made anything?
Has he made anything yet? I think he's still working on chipping people. The tongs are coming back. Do you remember the no, not the tongues.
The tongs. What are you saying? The tongs.
You know when you barbecue, what you flip a burger with the tongs?
Yeah, I think this is the wrong video for that.
No.
What are you? No, I'm just kidding. I still don't know what you.
You know, it's like a flat iron.
Flat iron.
Like tongs. Do you understand what I'm saying now or no? My accent.
I know what you're saying. I still don't know where you're going with this.
All right,
this
so
has to do with drying hair.
one side is flat, the other side's got bristles on it. Or both sides have bristles on it, or one side has a styling comb and then the other side has bristles on it. And so you just kind of run it through your hair like that.
And it blows, or it's just for brushing?
Well, it used to be just for brushing and for smoothing out hair. That was in the 90s and in the early 2000s. But now it's starting to come back again where it's got the vents in it and it could be a blow dryer. So now you'll have an option of, because it's like, for example, we have paddle brushes and then we have round brushes, right?
Right.
Well, now you just have these round brush blow dryers, but now you're going to have the option to have a flat brush blow dryer. That'll be kind of like the equivalent of a flat brush.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I haven't seen that yet. So
It's
you can
coming.
grab. It's coming.
Yeah. So that's what I would say. That was the most interesting thing.
Soon it'll just be an app on my phone, the blow dryer app.
And your phone will start blowing air out of it, right?
I mean, they do everything else. Why can't my phone blow dry my hair?
You know what? Through the USB port, probably.
They put the camera, they put the computer in there, they put the light, the calculator. I mean, truly, all the electronics we've had.
I mean, it's a power source. So if you think about
them all into a. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you connected an attachment to the bottom of your phone, this becomes the battery pack, and then. And then I don't know how strong you would get, but you would get some airflow out of it. You could make it.
That was one of the last questions I got from somebody that I couldn't answer rightfully, but it was a hairdresser. Actually, it was my sister-in-law. She's like, Bernard, she's in Texas. She said, Bernard, I was at a dance recital. I need this thing I just saw. What do you know about it? It was cordless. And cordless flat iron and a cordless blow dryer. I think it was a
Yeah.
cordless flat iron, but it might have been the one that was blowing also. And I said, I don't know much about it. For many, many years, getting the power source, because heated elements take so much power that batteries weren't strong enough or long lived enough to keep it hot enough, long enough to actually do a full head of hair. And so apparently some companies have had them out for quite a few years now. They just haven't really gained a lot of popularity. And she said, in the bathroom with a whole bunch of dance recital girls all taking up all the plugs, this mom didn't need come in with a little generator. You know, she didn't need a plug. She just had all battery operated stuff, and it was so cool and it worked so well. And I said, I really don't know much about it, but we've been saying it my whole career, because we are seeing a lot of our tools go to cordless in the clippers and clippers and a lot of cutting tools, but not so much the blow dryers and irons and styling tools just yet.
In the early 2000s, I had a cordless, rechargeable flat iron. And
work well?
At the time, it worked well because it was just everything was 500 degrees, and it just didn't matter. We were doing a lot of the Japanese permanent straightening, systems. So we were just going through the hair. So and it was really wild technology. I found it in Japan when I was in Japan. So it was I brought it back with me, and it was a really fun tool to have. Unfortunately, it died, and I couldn't find anybody over here to repair it. Right. But I have heard what she's talking about, that they now have blow dryers. Yeah, with the advent of EVs, in vehicles, battery operated. Talk about Musk, right? So with the addition of battery and lithium and the technology nowadays, they do have battery operated blow dryers and flat irons. I haven't personally played with any of them myself, but I am familiar with the technology, and it is fascinating for a consumer, for just, for the average client. I imagine that could be an option.
Forget a consumer. My hairdressers, that's half of the sloppiness of a station. All these freaking wires everywhere. And
I don't know at a professional level how long I'm with you. How long would that battery last, and how long would it take to recharge in between clients?
So you're still going to have wires going to the chargers, because you're going to have to charge it in between.
You're going to have a dock or a charger.
Yeah, it'll just hopefully just get the wire situation neatened up, and then when you spin the chair, you're not tying up a client in a wire, getting around their feet and all. I guess that's really more the convenience of it. Is it looks a little neater at the station to have less wires coming from the station to the client at some point. But yes, on the go, it could be really convenient.
Otherwise, you got to do like that booth at the one show we were at next to us. They had those gravity wires coming from the ceiling.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It is great if you're going to use wires, but I think so many things are going wireless.
It would be interesting. So then I would put that question out to our audience.
Yep,
are you using a battery operated?
And do you like it?
Do you like it? How is it working? I really would be interested to know, to get some user feedback rather than just doing research.
How many wireless tools are you using, and are they any good? Are they as good as the wired ones yet, or good enough?
So that's all I got.
Me too.
You want to do a sign off?
No, I don't ever do.
Because you love doing those.
That's not my job. Eddie is now going to beg you guys to subscribe and like our channel.
In your dreams. Thanks, everybody.
Live, we need you so bad.
Such a punk. I will catch everybody later. We'll talk to you next week.
Could you bag a little?
I don't beg for nothing.